From your most watched, most trusted weather source, here's your certified, most accurate First Alert forecast.
Sunshine is back tomorrow. The 50s, probably not. Another cold front kind of starts to knock our temperatures back down. That'll change our winds to the northwest. Not too windy tomorrow, more breezy, but you will notice it, and it'll probably make the mid to upper 40s feel a little bit colder versus the southwest breeze. Wasn't as strong as what we're expecting for tomorrow, but that's more of a warming breeze for us. Closer to 50 for the coast, winds a little bit stronger too, so they kind of all counterbalance us to make it all feel the same across the ENC. Our coldest day probably going to be Wednesday, and then we start to warm up again. So really the cold this week, not as bad as it has been the past few weeks, and not as bad as it's going to be next week. We go from near 60 degrees this weekend with a storm system to 46 for a high on Monday, 35 for a high next Tuesday. And that's going to start another window for any type of wintry weather. But like we saw with the last window, doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be snow, as we got mainly ice, though there were some snowflakes mixing in with that ice. We would need something to develop down here and kind of ride the border of that really cold air. Really, the closer to the coast and maybe even out over the water would be our best pattern for any type of snow chances. Otherwise, it'd probably be a mix of ice again. But this is some pretty strong cold, and it is going to be colder next week than what we had in place last week. This could be ultimately the coldest air of the winter. So far, we've been consistently cold, but we haven't seen that big push of cold air where we wake up in the teens. This could be it. And if there's a breeze, maybe dropping our wind chills into the single digits. So keep that in mind for any plans next week. The earliest that arrives is next Tuesday. For tonight, going to be cold, but cold we've seen several times already this winter. As we see the last of the daylight, things are just going to get a little chillier. So if you didn't need the jacket or the coat this afternoon, you'll probably need it again if you don't already. Down to 43 in Greenville, 41 in Rocky Mount, 30s for Kenansville and Kinston, 44 in Oriental. A little bit of a northwest breeze tonight, but it really kicks into gear tomorrow all the way through Wednesday morning. And temperatures tonight still into the 20s, most of us below freezing, but some spots in Carteret County, Deer County, especially out across the Outer Banks, expected to stay just above freezing. The clouds are moving away. There are still maybe some clouds building back into the Crystal Coast, but no rain. A lot of this is just virga, rain that doesn't reach the surface, gets absorbed by the dry air, and if it is reaching the surface, would not be very heavy in the first place. Very, very quiet across the country. We don't see our next rain chance until we get into the weekend. Notice the rain may not be here when we start our Saturday, but it will be by the time we end our day. So increasing rain chances for the start of the weekend, and hopefully some decreasing rain chances. We could use 2 to 3 full days of straight rainfall. That's how dry it is across the NC, but it does look like maybe we'll get some dry weather on Sunday before that next cold front starts to push through, but it's going to be a big drop. Notice our overnight temperatures are already at 20 by next Tuesday morning, so if we only hit 35, that would push our overnight temperatures well into the teens.
Certainly going to be a bit of a rude awakening after the weekend, looking like we'll hit some warmish temperatures.
Yeah, maybe 60s for some, but usually there's a pretty big temperature gradient, kind of 45 to about 60 degrees when we get these type of systems. So not everyone expected to hit the 60s.
All right, just be prepared for the drop afterward. All right, thanks, Zach.